And here we go with the nose. I've been apologizing to the panelists. I still haven't recovered from my jet lag, and then I raised money at 6:30 this morning. So I may stop speaking English at some point today. That's entirely possible. However, we have a great panel. It shouldn't be a big problem. Joining us here in studio is James Hanley, co-founder of Cine Studio at Trinity College. Ooh, is Dunkirk still playing?
Yes, it is. Through Saturday.
Go see Dunkirk in Hanley vision, as I call it, which is the way that you should see this movie. I mean, it really, if you're going to see Dunkirk.
On physical film.
Yeah, on physical film, 70 millimeters. Do it now in Hanley vision. And make sure when you buy your ticket, say, is this in Hanley vision? Sam Hatch co-hosts The Culture Dogs on Sunday nights at WWUH, 8 p.m.?
8 p.m. indeed, yeah.
So that's when I listen to it anyway. Carolyn Payne is an actress, comedian, dancer. I don't know. It's like everything, really.
Car buyer.
Yes, car buyer, Ford Focus owner, founder, director, and choreographer of Kinetic Dance. So in our second segment today, I'll tell you about the second segment. There's two attempts to continue the Star Trek line, sort of. One of them is the Orville. It's by Seth MacFarlane. It's supposed to be funny. I guess maybe that was a bad way to put it, but maybe it wasn't a bad way to put it. There's also on CBS, but you have to pay for it and watch it on some kind of device hooked up to the internet, something called Star Trek Discovery, which is in fact part of the whole Star Trek franchise, and it takes all of its tropes pretty darn seriously. So that is to come. In the first segment, we are going to talk about at least one and perhaps two very prominent men, but in very different ways. If we have time, we'll talk about the role that Jimmy Kimmel is playing as kind of a conscience and access to sincere emotions in American public life, which turns out to be a unique role as opposed to one that a lot of people share. But first, the news of the day has been the New York Times coverage of Harvey Weinstein, a titan, a mogul in the film industry, and apparently, according to this reporting, a kind of serial sexual harasser in a way that sounds very familiar to people who've read the stories about Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly, and I suppose the whole notion of the casting couch, which goes way back in the history of Hollywood. With Weinstein, it's a little bit of a bigger problem because he is connected to a lot of progressive causes, Democratic candidates. He's the guy you can count on for money and his presence at a Planned Parenthood fundraiser or something like that, and which may explain why it has been overlooked or looked past or just merely whispered about for decades. But we're going to talk a little bit about this. James, maybe we should just begin. I mean, I think most people know who Harvey Weinstein is, but how big a figure is he in the film industry?
Well, he really is very big in a way that probably a lot of people don't realize, that he founded a company, Miramax, which really revolutionized the way what used to be called art films were released in the market. And instead of being in a tiny number of theaters and very few people seeing these films, he managed to get the casts together, the directors together, and the publicity campaigns that turned these small films into much larger films. A good example is the Merchant Ivory films that were really, they were very high quality. He would go to the best writers, the best directors, and actually foster the development of properties that previously wouldn't have been touched by the major film studios. And so his influence and his brother, the two of them, they founded Miramax, and Miramax became a powerhouse of art cinema, really, on a scale that nobody had ever seen before. And certainly, as far as we were concerned at Cine Studio, we were dealing with a major studio at that point. And it was actually quite difficult negotiating sometimes because they were very big in the market and they knew they had the good stuff, and they would charge prices accordingly. And I think that it changed the whole nature of the way films are released in the U.S. especially, but it also affected the entire world. And I think that that is something that, the Weinstein's reputation rests on that. And that is so influential in Hollywood, that kind of success and that kind of shift, that I think that that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are, they've been reluctant to actually bring this to the fore.
Right. So, and just to keep updating you about all this stuff, he has issued kind of an apology saying that he mistreated women, quoting Jay-Z, Sam JC, maybe not the person I would quote right at this moment anyway, Thich Nhat Hanh or somebody like that instead, and also threatened to sue the New York Times while admitting that they're basically right.
Yeah, his apology was essentially Phil Hartman's unfrozen caveman lawyer from SNL. He's like, I'm a guy from the 60s. I don't know how to keep my hands inside my own pockets and not touch you with them. I'll try. I think that was his ultimate goal, was to try to be a better person. But yeah, like James was saying about the influence, the tendrils of Miramax, as you know, for a young up and coming actor or actress, really it spread out to all the other studios. I had a friend that worked in the video dubbing department at Miramax, and all he did pretty much was make tapes and copies of tapes and send them around. And they were never going within Miramax; they were always going to other studios. Miramax was where everybody looked to, they had so much product, so much indie product, and so many great actors and actresses in the films. Everyone was looking to see who they were going to use, to poach for their even bigger products. So if you wanted a gig in Hollywood, it would definitely behooved you to stay on Harvey's good side. So it really clearly was a case where his power was so immense. In the New York Times article, I think it was Ms. O'Connor said it was 0 to 10 on Harvey's side to hers, right, as far as the weight and distribution of power, and that's pretty accurate.
And Carolyn, the other thing, first of all, you as somebody, I live vicariously through your auditions, but most of the auditions have to do with not Harvey Weinstein greeting
Thank
you
goodness.
in a bathrobe.
Reading.
Massage, please.
That you've mentioned. Anyway.
Watch me take a shower? What? The accusations were, to me, just chilling. The things, and first of all, I think it's incredibly brave for the actresses who have come forward and have said things. And I even read an account from a reporter who he, just went ape on. And I mean,
but he became very violent. The same reporter, became incredibly violent.
Yes,
knocked one of the reporters down the stairs, put the other reporter in a headlock, and dragged him down the street.
But he grew up in the '60s or whatever, right? That's what
you just did that, right?
Yeah. What do I get away with for saying I grew up in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah. You should figure that out.
Yeah, but I just don't. To me, it's just terrifying that this has kind of laid under the surface for so long. That somebody who is doing this, who has this kind of behavior, clearly there are rage issues, power abuse, just sexual harassment, how it has taken so long for this to come out. And that being said, I understand how many actresses would probably feel like this could be so hurtful to their career, especially if this is like their breakout moment to get to work with him. I understand. I mean, I have never worked with a director who has done anything like that, but you've had directors who do pull power plays on you, and you do feel like going to the producers and going behind their back and saying, like, I feel uncomfortable. This work environment is not great for me. You do worry, like, they're just going to find someone who finds that fine.
Yeah.
So that to me is kind of the sad and scary part of this, but I am really glad that it is coming out.
But James, this whole bubbling under the surface thing has become so familiar now. I mean, whether it's Roger Ailes or Bill O'Reilly or Bill Cosby or whoever, I mean, we're really getting used to this story that it's an open secret, everybody knew it, or awful lot of people knew it, and nothing is done. And I don't know, it's almost like it goes more back to the divine right of kings or something.
Well, exactly. That's a very good way of describing it, I think, is it's the sort of privilege of royalty kind of thing. Nobody wants to actually trip the wire that's going to get some heads lopped off. And there's a lot of money being made, and I think there's a lot of facilitators. And, for instance, if you're a new star who's trying to get a job, and your agent is saying, watch out for Harvey, probably, get a good warning, like I think one of the warnings was wear a parka.
Yeah.
Like exactly what that meant, I'm not sure. But I mean, all of those things, there are these facilitators in the background, kind of like the hangers-on in a royal house, who are saying, well, I know this is really tough, but just hold your breath, do it, because, otherwise we're all going to lose our heads. And Harvey Weinstein is the kind of person who has a great deal of heft in the industry. I mean, it really can decide huge amounts of money. And it's interesting about producers, because producers, in a sense, are the source facilitators in that they're the ones with the money. They're the ones pouring out the money, and they're saying, well, so-and-so, you have to have so-and-so in this picture, then we'll put the money in it, and and Harvey Weinstein is sort of, part of that picture that is funneling this money to this production, and then all of these producers will then come on board, and all of that money is threatened by somebody who comes and says, wait a minute, he wants me to watch him in the shower, actually bring a suit out or actually say something. And it's very hard because if you look at most of these people, they're starting out very young, they're inexperienced, they're not really, they're not likely to find a lawyer who's willing to go after somebody so powerful. And it's one of those things that it develops over the years to be absolutely enveloping. And so there are all of these warning things that are given in advance to say, just watch out, but nothing's going to change.
All right. So to be continued, I guess. I mean, some other things about this. Democrats are now trying to figure out whether they need to give money back that Harvey Weinstein raised for them. He has announced that somehow or other, as a way of making reparations, he is going to rain hellfire on the NRA. I don't really get that exactly, as opposed to really taking a long, hard look at himself. Yeah. Apparently, he's
getting therapy himself.
Yeah. Right, he is going to torture Wayne LaPierre.
He's working on it. Everybody, come on.
Right.
He's actually going to torture Wayne LaPierre?
Well, he didn't use the word torture, but he said that he was going to make Wayne LaPierre's life a living hell. Oh. And as opposed to, which is fine, except that probably first you should look at yourself, and then you could worry about all of Wayne's flaws. I don't know if I even have time for Jimmy Kimmel. I guess we can't play the Jimmy Kimmel clip. That's the way that we're going to solve this problem. But I would like to just maybe end this segment on a somewhat happier, more positive note. Jimmy Kimmel, the late night talk show host, has done something a couple of times now. First with he's injected himself into the healthcare debate because his own son was born with a heart defect. It helped him understand and empathize with people who wouldn't have his resources to get this incredibly necessary treatment for a baby. Now he has jumped into the gun debate, partly because he grew up in Vegas. He can sort of understand and sense and has a memory of the MGM Grand Fire there as a kid, and he can imagine the incredible pain that people are feeling right now as they lose family members, as they lose parents to a gun massacre, and wants to know if something can be done about this. Carolyn, one of the things that's interesting about this is that it shouldn't seem like an accomplishment that Jimmy Kimmel can be moved to tears by the notion of 58, 59, 60 people being shot and their families being riven apart. But he's like the guy who can do this right now, which is weird.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Kimmel watcher. I'm not really a big late night comedy, those kind of shows. I don't really invest much time in them. But Kimmel, I did this week kind of look into it, and he does have this as a comedian, part of what can make you really appealing is to have that vulnerability where it's just very human, and you're in this unique position where you get to have this voice where it's kind of like the everyman voice, but also where you're kind of able to dissect things and bring out the humor or bring out the realism that people can look at things in a different way. And I think Kimmel does a really good job of that. Where I think it would be very weird to see like Stephen Colbert crying.
Right.
But for Jimmy Kimmel, it works, and it's not like a shtick. It's just a very genuine, and I think that he has sort of like opened up who he is, and especially with the experience with his son. And I really did enjoy kind of going through and watching some of the clips.
It is. I mean, there's going to be, the Dixie Chicks are told to shut up and sing. Yeah. He's going to be told to shut up and make us laugh.
Oh, it's once you kind of feel for him and kind of feel that it's interesting seeing this guy exposing his humanity on television, and then you watch the clip on YouTube. All that gets shredded once you look at the YouTube comments, and he's just excoriated, torn apart for simply just for displaying crocodile tears to
but
people.
I think that's what makes him so much more powerful. Like to me, I saw that as that now he shows this like raw side where he can really find these interesting perspectives. Yeah. And I mean, I guess it comes down to like maybe men aren't supposed to be crying.
Yeah, I heard a lot of complaints about that. What is his old man show cohort Adam Carolla think about this gross display of crying on television.
Well, yeah,
and then,
they did host a show that featured girls on trampolines rather
exactly,
prominently. But we grow up, we become different. And James,
Exactly,
I do feel one thing I was saying in the emails is I do feel that there is an appetite right now. I think for the heart.
I agree with you. I think that's true, and I think the thing that seems very clear to me with Jimmy Kimmel is that the experience with his own family is something that obviously has caused him a kind of personal crisis about sort of who I am and who am I on TV. And I think that he does come across as entirely genuine on that level. And it's so startling because so few people do come across that way because they're always playing the character they are and they're not really coming forth with this. And it's absolutely showing vulnerability and its willingness to show yourself as being somebody really focusing on this. And Sam, you mentioned the YouTube comments and stuff like that. I really think that there is an industry, I don't know whether it's in Belarus or Russia or in Arizona, there's boiler rooms creating this sort of caustic comment to anybody who shows that kind of what they perceive as weakness.
It did seem very unified.
And YouTube comments in general, having been a victim of some, I mean, it is a really, it's a crazy land.
Sam, it might be a bot, right? I mean,
there was a very unified response of watch Ben Shapiro's video, which just tore Jimmy Kimmel apart piece by piece and broke every little segment of him down and proclaimed that this was all planned. In the beginning, he said that it wasn't political, but obviously it was going to be political because he had the imagery planned in the background of all the senators. And so there's that whole scenario. But that's pretty much the entire argument was watch this video, watch this video, watch this video. So yeah, it could be all bots.
We're going to go to a break right now. I do want to say watch the Jimmy Kimmel video. It's very interesting too. And even sort of in terms of delivery, it's very interesting. You realize, first of all, I actually think telling a joke is really hard. So in a way for Kimmel, this very naturalistic way of speaking, which I think would be difficult for a lot of people to do. I don't think politicians do it all that well. It seems to come rather easily to him. The way that he pours out his feelings and his story is incredibly effective. All right, people are going to ask you to support public radio. If you do it right now during our show, we get some of the credit. So think about doing that. They're very nice people. Give them what they're asking for.
We crushing late night, Jimmy Kimmel. We tricking late night.
And we are back to the Colin McEnroe Show. Thank you if you did give during that segment. It's time to get back to the nose, though. And here to do the nose, James Hanley, co-founder of Cine Studio at Trinity College. Sam Hatch, who co-hosts the Culture Dogs on Sunday nights, WWUH, 8 p.m. Don't miss it. I'm telling you to listen to a different radio station. Carolyn Payne is an actress, comedian, dancer, founder and choreographer of Kinetic Dance. So we're going to switch over to two glosses maybe on the Star Trek franchise and on all of the tropes that are involved in Star Trek, which has been around, of course, pretty much forever. And so one of them is a comic gloss. The other one is a serious attempt to carry forth all of the ideas or some of the ideas of the franchise. We're going to talk about the comic one first because I think it's harder to do it in reverse. And let me just begin by saying Seth MacFarlane cannot get a fair trial in this town, or at least not on this show, because I really don't like Seth MacFarlane.
I like him.
You do?
I do.
Oh, good.
I appreciate his sophomoric humor. I like it.
So Seth MacFarlane will get a fair trial.
Yeah.
And he is, of course, the creator of The Family Guy and lots of other things as well. In this thing, he has made the decision to appear as an actor, as a character. The main character, in fact, his name is Ed. He is somebody who works for the Union, which I think is the same thing as Starfleet Command. He is given command of a mid-size vessel. And then one of the things that happens to him is that after he's been given the rest of his team, he doesn't have a first officer. And then he is given as first officer his ex-wife who has they have divorced over, well, at least nominally, over an act of infidelity she had with an alien. But in fact, partly out of his incredible neglect of her. I will say parenthetically, she is played by the wonderful actress who played Tyra on Friday Night Lights. And Tyra was the kind of person who might make the kind of mistake that marrying Seth MacFarlane represents. Anyway, we're going to hear a little clip where they arrive on another planet, and MacFarlane's character Ed is introducing his entire team to the people of this other planet.
Captain Mercer, welcome to Epsilon 2. Thank you for coming.
Dr. Aronov, this is my security chief, Alara Katan, my chief medical officer, Claire Finn.
Pleasure.
And my ex-wife, Kelly Grayson.
I'm his first officer.
But if any of your research team needs an artless, jabby nail shoulder massage, she's the best there is.
Doctor, you want to tell us why you falsely diverted a starship on active duty? You know you could do time for that.
We need protection.
Protection from what?
The krill.
There have been no krill ships sighted in this area.
Come inside, I'll explain.
So, Sam, one of the problems, I think you can hear right in this clip, I actually did do a little spit take there when he introduced everybody else by title and then introduced, this is my ex-wife, because that's, in fact, who she is to him. She's not anything else. But, I mean, the rest of this is sort of like a kind of labored setup that you might have for a pretty serious Star Trek derivative.
Yeah, it's a bizarre show overall because it's not for Seth MacFarlane fans because the abstract, as South Park would call manatee jokes from Family Guy, where it would break off into these flights of fancy with no connection to the main plot. There's none of that here. It is ostensibly a hard-on-the-sleeve fan fiction Star Trek series, and they skirt around, being able to use things like the Federation and all that. But I mean, once you get down to it, it's the next generation. And I hate to say it, but the second episode where they find a whole world that's inside a floating space station, there's this bio-engineered community in there, and they kind of have to help them realize that they're on a floating vessel heading towards a star. That was the best Next Generation show I've seen since the Next Generation dropped off the air. And the comedy is it's not funny, but there's very, very little of it. You could trim off like a couple seconds here and there and just have a new Star Trek show, albeit with far worse special effects than what's airing on Discovery.
The fourth, I think, and very newest episode, which I have not seen, has Charlize Theron in it.
Yes.
And I think it's directed by Jonathan Frakes, who was one of the pillars of the Next Generation Star Trek. So maybe he's going to get a fair trial here. I don't know, James. I just didn't. I know James is going to be as pitiless as I am. So.
Well, I must say, hearing that analysis, Sam, was like, okay, I can see that sort of serious side of it. But I think that is the great pitfall, really.
Yeah, it's still a problem, right?
It's a serious problem, really, trying to be a satire and actually doing it as well, and having in the sort of context of Star Trek itself has a very sort of serious pantheon around it of certain principles and characters and how it's developed over many, many years. And if you're going to satirize it, you probably have to do it in a way that has a kind of subtlety to it that it constantly makes you aware of it being like a satire, really. But I agree that I found myself on sort of like constantly thinking, really, they have to come in with this joke or that joke, and it really sort of was like every time it started to get interesting, some lame joke, that would come up that was then repeated again and again, as if the slowest wits will be sure to get this one. And so at the end of it, I felt sort of, what was the point of spending that much time with it? It just didn't really, and it's a shame because you could develop those ideas. I agree about that, but it just doesn't. I don't know. And Seth MacFarlane, oddly enough, I get the feeling he's sort of standing there waiting for the next lame joke. Sort of like it's like the timing of it is off.
Well, yeah, that's. I mean, James and I both had this. I'll go to the professional comedian here, but I mean, beats are such a huge part, particularly of sketch comedy or this kind of. I mean, every joke has a beat. David Steinberg is famous for directing Seinfeld episodes where he just has this incredible ear for where the beat is, and I feel like this is the opposite of a David Steinberg directed show. Like I'm sitting there watching the beat fall and then the kind of joke kind of roll across the table for a second and people are kind of looking at the joke. And
yeah. Okay, so I have to clarify. I am a Seth MacFarlane fan. I in no way endorse this show. I in no way find this to be Seth MacFarlane at his best.
The blurb, of course, will be, I am a Seth MacFarlane fan. Carolyn Payne. Anyway, go ahead.
My mother once tried to tell me that I should, date him. She was like, you should try to find Seth MacFarlane. And I was like, that's not going to, what are you going to do, write as people? I don't know. But so the thing with this show is that I felt like it's like a parody of Star Trek, and almost like doesn't understand how to be a parody of Star Trek.
Yeah,
Like I
Galaxy
watched
Quest, watch
Next
that.
Generation like loosely, like, back when I was a kid and it was on, like I remember watching it. And I feel like this is written by somebody, like the writers were people like me who like had a loose idea of what was happening and then just kind of ran with that. There's none of that like deeper understanding that for real like Trekkie fans, which is just such a huge culture, it doesn't go like deep enough. And then the comedy timing thing, the problem with that, it absolutely. So Seth MacFarlane, one of the things I do love is Family Guy moved at such a pace. Like it just felt like sometimes you had to watch the episode a second time to catch all the jokes and the references, and the pacing just always kept moving. And this is. If that was like a ball that's just continually rolling, this is like a ball that like drops and doesn't actually ever roll.
Right. And Sam, could we also say, I don't know, I mean, maybe this is an unfair thing to say. I feel like this has already been done perfectly by Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest, absolutely.
Galaxy Quest is something close to a perfect comedy movie, and it is a Star Trek parody. Why do another one after that?
Yeah, and that was, when I saw the trailer, I'm like, all right, well, how are they going to out Galaxy Quest? And the answer, of course, is they don't. And yeah, one of the strange things is all the tropes about the series, they play them all pretty much straightforward. I mean, a lot of the kind of science fiction premises and even the denizens of these planets they encounter, they're played as straight as they would be in, or taken as seriously as they would be in a Star Trek
It just lacks
episode.
the creativity that I expected it to have.
Yeah, you think there's so much fodder here for him to get completely off the rails with making fun of these people and himself and et cetera.
And this is Seth MacFarlane, who really kind of created a new way to write comedy and do those like cut-tos and all this stuff. So I think maybe he's just trying to do something different and challenge himself. But
yeah, because they're not going to say
this is something
no to
that you wanted to see like workshopped a little bit more.
Well,
right. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that he's trying to originate something here that you can't really originate because it has such a pantheon in place that, when what he's done before is originate a style and a certain delivery of the comedy. I think that a Galaxy Quest succeeds, for example, because everything is just throwaways. It moves at lightning speed.
Yes.
Right.
And people who need to get it or who are aware will get it. Some other people may miss a few things. But if you then take that and slow it down in the style of the Orville, you really take away the exhilaration of having a sense that somebody is having fun with something, but they are taking account of all of its details.
I had never been so bored watching a comedy in my life.
I know it slows it down to a leaden pace because of that.
Well, we have to switch gears here. We have to go to the far more serious attempt to capture the lightning of Star Trek in a bottle. That is Star Trek Discovery. You have to sign up for some kind of CBS thing that is connected to the internet in order to watch it.
And to your credit card.
And to your credit card, yes. And so be forewarned. We'll hear a little clip from this. I think you're going to hear the two female leads, at least for the first two episodes. That is Michelle Yeoh playing the commander of a Starfleet vessel, and then a character named Michael, who's actually a woman, played by the same actress who plays Sasha in The Walking Dead, if that helps you place her a little bit. She was also Larry Sanders' secretary. Anyway, she's terrific. No, wait. I'm getting her mixed up with the actress from the Orville. That's right. So this is Sasha from The Walking Dead.
That's why I said you can combine these two shows and get a good one.
It's Sasha from The Walking Dead who plays Michael. All right, you're going to hear something has gone down between Michael and some Klingons. She's trying to explain it to her boss.
Philippa, there are Klingons.
Red alert. Tell me what happened.
He ambushed me. I hit my thruster pack to get away. I somehow knocked him into his blade. I killed him. But that object could be hiding a Klingon raiding party obscured behind that scattering field.
If there are Klingons in the sector, they may be responsible for the damage to our relay.
If there are Klingons in this sector, we should withdraw immediately.
This is Federation space. Retreat is not an option. Whatever is over there needs to show itself. If it's hiding Klingons, we've got to flush them out.
Target phase cannons on the object.
We cannot destroy another culture's property on a whim.
I didn't say anything about destroying it.
Let's make them think we're going to attack. Target the object.
We're locked on.
All right, so that was all kind of inscrutable, I think. But So
I think this is how we're going to negotiate with Iran now, right?
Yeah.
Well, the geopolitics of this thing are kind of interesting, right? Because you've got the Romulans and they've got the Romulans. You got the Klingons. They got this new leader, at least for a while, who is very sort of Geert Wilders, Marine Le Pen, and sort of make Klingons great again. Right. But then there's this question about how you answer that back. Do you punch them in the face? I think that's one of the things the show really sort of oversimplifies. I mean, it bites off this enormous sort of the implications of where they're writing it. They're taking the story into a thing that is pretty heavy, and actually it would be pretty hard to figure out and to negotiate a way around. And the show doesn't seem quite prepared for that, and so making the threat to actually the whole issue of making a threat to destroy somebody or something that is dear to them it contains the idea that, well, you've got to be ready to follow through. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, of course, that person has the power to possibly destroy you if they are indeed there. James, Star Trek, I think James mentioned all the kind of first principles and codes and things like that are embedded in most Star Trek things. Although, Sam, one of the things we know is they violate them almost immediately. In this thing, they're like, stop. They talk about violating it. The credits are barely over, and they're trying to violate one.
And then even characters that come out with this plaintive plea, like, we can't kill this guy. He will become a martyr. But I'll kill him about 20 minutes from now. Don't worry about it.
I think you and I are the people most likely to go forward, boldly go forward with this series. Did it work for you? Or, do you feel like you're going to stay with it?
I think it's just started. What's the problem? I think I need to settle in now that the show has begun. Part of the problem was that they aired the first part on CBS before they lured you into their pseudo-Netflixian CBS All Access miasma. And then they don't really give you any satisfying answers, and it's really a 2-episode segment. That's really just like that would be the first 20 minutes or 15 minutes of a movie. Mm-hmm. This big war is begun. Sadly, Michelle Yeoh's in there. She should have been a main cast member forever, but apparently is not. And now they've established the show with Jason Isaacs as this new captain.
That's what I was like the first 2 episodes, it was
a teaser.
I could have done without all of that. The third episode should have been the pilot.
Yes.
And because that one, but I mean, after I suffered through the first 2, I was like actually debating. I was like, if I don't watch this third one, am I going to be able to keep up in conversation? And I was like, do your homework, do the thing, watch it. And I was glad I did because that redeemed it for me. And I felt like the other 2 episodes, the first 2 were this very lengthy pilot with all this backstory, for me, didn't do anything to help the show. And especially a show that they're trying to get people to essentially pay to watch.
Yeah, CBS only aired one half of that. And they assume that you're going to want to give them your credit card to see the rest of it. And you haven't even introduced the characters.
And I'm surprised the owners of the rights, who are obviously trying to restart the franchise, why would you limit it that way with such a relatively small group who are being asked to pay something that is, I guess Netflix has just raised its price, so it's roughly the same. But still, I couldn't figure out exactly what CBS All Access is other than Star Trek.
And Big Bang Theory episodes.
Oh, Big Bang Theory was the other thing,
but it's not enough.
In other words, it's self-limiting at a time when the tenor of the show is that they're actually trying to broaden it.
Yeah, and it's on Netflix everywhere else except the United States.
Yes.
And it really should be on Netflix here, but they're really pushing the CBS All Access so
weird,
hard here.
The other thing I think that might be a problem here is there may be a too many cooks problem, right? There are people who were involved in the original Star Trek who were there. Yeah. Nicholas Meyer, who's a terrific, I think, overseer of this kind of stuff, is listed as a consulting producer. Eugene Roddenberry, I assume that's Gene Roddenberry's son or something.
Or clone.
Or something. But I mean, that, James, may prevent it from really achieving a real specific kind of vision it can go after.
Yeah, I think that all argues for the idea that this is really kind of a sort of experimental thing to actually see if we can do this. And one of the things I would think that would attract some of these high-powered backers and writers would be that this limited exposure through a paid subscription would actually give them more freedom in terms of what they could do. That hasn't shown up yet. but I think that there's a possibility there. The one thing I thought that was a mistake in this whole thing was bringing the Klingons in right at the beginning.
Sure.
Literally right at the beginning.
Literally right at the beginning. And because the Klingons, there's a lot of things that are interesting about the Klingons, including the fact they have a real language. But one of the things that really bothered me was the slowness of the delivery of the Klingon lines, complete with subtitles.
Big subtitles, too.
Yeah, really big subtitles.
Yeah.
And you thought,
Very interesting font choice, too.
Yes, that was another thing, too. Nobody puts fonts in a serif. Nobody puts subtitles in a serif font. It was very strange.
Was it copperplate, or what did they use? It was something.
But the real thing was the fact that kind of slowed things down. I mean, I think they would have been much better to use a much less sort of a stylized villain, if you like, something like the Borg or something like that would have focused on the people like Michelle Yeoh and the other characters who really had some charisma.
Well, we have to go to a break. Although I want to say, these are not your father's, I guess I'm your father, your father's Klingons. No. I mean, they're all like United Colors of Benetton, and there's like a white Klingon. And, they're just very different.
Can't they talk?
Well, you know what the problem is? I think, Sam, the problem is people speak Klingon, right? There are people there who watch these things who are going to go, that's not what he said. No, they didn't say all of that. All right, we have to go to a break.
Stardate 10/6/17. Today's show is produced in a red shirt by Ensign Jonathan McPants moments before he died to prove this was a serious situation. Also by me, Kyone Wolf. I'm kind of the Whoopi Goldberg-Guinan character here. Amanda Fish was not on the away team. The part of Bill Curry was played by DeForest Kelley. On Monday's show, we'll be back with The Scramble. And now, back to Colin.
All right, here we go. We're going to make some recommendations to you. James Hanley, you go first.
Well, I was going to make a recommendation, but I have to say something else I was thinking all day today. I feel like I'm a frog in the boiling pot at the moment, having read the new pronouncements by the Justice Department that transgender people are not going to be projected, the part of the attack on LGBT people. There's a new pronouncement that birth control services, a part of the attack on women, black people being treated. I just feel that we're in a terrible state at the moment, and people need to be thinking about what we need to do, how we need to react to this. I've been wanting to hide from it, but I felt I couldn't, so that's why I couldn't make a recommendation.
Okay, so you're endorsing activism.
Yes.
All right, Sam, what have you got?
I'll do two. Briefly, Blade Runner 2049. Go see it right now. Support NPR, and then run out and go see the film, and then support NPR again when you get back out. But take some time out today. Quit your day job. Go see Blade Runner 2049.
It will be the topic next week on the news, too.
Yeah, and I won't be here, sadly. I already complained to Jonathan about that. But then I am going to be part of an event next week at the convention center called Retro World Expo 2017. And it is largely a gaming event and vintage gaming and all sorts of people doing competitions, et cetera. But I'm going to be doing a panel on Laserdiscs and Laserdisc players, optical media from the 80s and the 90s, and I'm going to be screening some later that night, and it's going to be a good time playing vintage video games and hanging out with a bunch of nerds. So,
and that's next weekend?
Yeah, the 14th and the 15th over at the Connecticut Convention Center, Retro World Expo.
All right, Jonathan says he went to that last year or 2 years ago. It was
Perfect.
pretty cool. Yeah.
We'll hang out.
Carolyn.
Okay. I first want to say there is a show on Netflix called Big Mouth, and it is so funny and irreverent. And yes, it has all the sophomoric humor, but it kind of is in the vein of Family Guy, but it is just really clever.
Is it animated or
is it? It's animated, and I mean, Maya Rudolph she's one of the voices, is spectacular in it. Just definitely check that out. It's so easy. Just binge all 10 episodes and you will laugh to the point of tears with it, I promise. And also, I'm sure you're going to endorse this, but Nightfall is tomorrow night. I really think that that's a beautiful thing here in Hartford. It has great music, dance, puppetry. Just go. I plan on being there on a blanket with some wine, enjoying it. So I think it's in Bushnell Park this year. So you should go check that out.
6 p.m. in Bushnell Park. All right. When I have a little bit more time, I'm going to endorse the city of Belfast, one of the places that I was in the last couple of weeks. It's an amazing place. I'm going to do something simpler right now, particularly because the producer of this show goes by the nickname Pants. I'm going to endorse the pants that I'm wearing, the pants that I traveled in. These are called, they're made by, see, I think when you travel, you need pants that are crushable, that are lightweight, that'll look okay when you take them out of the suitcase, that wick out water and moisture pretty well. So these are made by Prana. I'm pretty sure they're called Stretch Zion. They're a nice kind of stretchable kind of fabric. When you travel, you need lighter weight clothes and stuff like that. I bought these for the trip. They're so great. I love them so much. So you can get them at REI. That's the main thing. So go to REI and say you want the kinds of Prana pants they were talking about on the radio, and they won't know what you're talking about. So Tom Petty also is one of the many stories of this week. At the beginning of the week, we found out that Tom Petty had died. So we will end our show today, and there'll be people coming on to ask you for donations. Please give donations. Please make pledges to this station during the break. We get credit for it when you do. This song is Wildflowers, and thanks so much to Sam Hatch, Carolyn Payne, and James Hanley. We'll be back on Monday.
You deserve the deepest of cover.